What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of NFT Pirates. I am here with Ryan and Jack from the Drop Podcast, which is my new favorite, morning show. I was telling these guys, I'm like, they remind me of a couple of anchors, discussing Veve, and it's thank God it's not CBC. It's like, a real authentic Veve channel. And I just thought like they had so much to offer. And, Ryan's also really popular as well on TikTok. And these guys are always in Twitter Spaces, and so they're just like really key members of the community. And I just felt like we need to get the word out there more. Such high quality production, and so yeah, man, just thrilled to have you guys here. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate everything you do for the community, man. Honestly, like you have the best videos, in my opinion, about Veve, about the topics around Veve, but you also keep it realistic too. Like you make it practical for people, right? So you're giving valuable information to people like me and Jack,
Yep.
but you're also giving great information to the new people. And I love that about your content. So I really appreciate you having us on here just to chat. I know we're gonna have a great conversation, man. And yeah, appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Appreciate it. Echoing what Ryan said, hats off to you guys, the OGs, right, for moving some of these mountains early on and, kind of paving the way for, I guess, the tier 2 guys like Ryan and I to kind of follow in your guys' footsteps. Back to end of 2021, just throwing YouTube video links back and forth to one another, saying, oh, check this out, check this topic out, and so forth. So definitely extremely inspirational. And yeah, thanks again for having us here. Apologies in advance for the bare back setting here. I know in our podcast videos it's usually a little more spruced up and a little sexier, but in the process of moving right now, so what you see is what you get. We're stuck with the skin and bones right now, down to the bare necessities. But
we will be having a new set though.
Yeah,
soon.
yeah.
We're going to be moving to an office down in Pittsburgh that I'm partners with in business, and their office is awesome. So look out for that.
So we'll bring some new energy again soon. But for now, yeah, we're stuck with the leftovers from the moving parts. So
Unreal. And I think a lot of people probably seen your podcast as well and seen how high quality it is. And obviously, you guys, what I love about you too is you lay out all your collectibles. And the other thing too that pisses me off, bro, is you guys are followed by Veve, and you're like, oh, here's the OG, and I'm like, wait a second, you guys are the real players, because how did that work out? Are you getting whitelisted now? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, man. I actually so the day after I hit or the day after Veve followed me, I hit a 51 Kenneth Rocafort Batman. So clearly, man, the people who are followed by Veve are getting whitelisted for these drops.
There was a conspiracy, and I brought that to Ryan's attention right away after he showed me that mint number. I was like, you 100% just got put on the VIP list. But obviously that myth has been busted because you were recently blocked on the marketplace. So you must not be too high up in their graces right now. Yeah. Although they did just give you access again. So I guess you're back just in time for the Star Wars drop. But we'll make you a deal though, Chad. We will trade you the Veve follow for that Veve sign in your background. So
I think that's a good trade.
I would actually take that trade, man. I probably would. If you could somehow delist your following, and then I would actually give you because you can't keep getting followed by Veve if you want the sign, right? So that'd be give or take here, No, I'm just playing.
We'll find someone to broker this trade here, and we'll get it done. So.
Through escrow, since there's no market.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So talking about that stuff, Jen, it's like there's a lot of fun, and what I love about you guys is that you're always in Twitter Spaces. You're kind of battling it, and you're approaching it in a really cool way where if somebody's has kind of a concerted energy and has been able to kind of confine some of their emotion and still be able to get out those thoughts that are important to them. You're really kind of garnering that in the right way and looking for solutions. And I think that's, super appreciated. And what I love about it is you guys are always thinking about all these different catalysts, that can take Veve like over the moon, and kind of like, maybe you can elaborate a bit more on what could happen if Veve just, has a little more, magic fairy dust that they could spray. And all of a sudden now we're, potentially seeing a lot more new users and a lot more marketing, because I know you guys are both, your backgrounds are in marketing as well, which is really cool. And so maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, I would love to speak on both of those things. So first the spaces, and then how we can be a community to collaborate to make this project better, right? And I think from a spaces standpoint, one of the coolest things that I've experienced is just genuinely organically getting into a room with people and talking, right? Like, I love YouTube, I love TikTok, I love Instagram, but it's somewhat polished, right? Like, we're having a conversation, but we do editing and stuff. When you get in space, it's just raw, right? You can't plan what you're going to say. You don't know what the question's going to be. It's just raw. And I think that breeds a lot of great introspective conversation. And so, for me, I would encourage a lot of the people in the community to try and get in those spaces, because that's really where the bread and butter kind of comes out. And you really see the overall sentiment of the community. You get some insights about things you might have never even knew, right? I'm learning about comics in a brand new way for the first time ever because of some of these people in spaces who have so much knowledge, right? Comics and crypto. I got Loco and Mass, shout out to them guys. They love comics.
My collectibles.
My collectibles, yeah. So I love the spaces side of things just because it's that genuine community that you can enjoy and learn from. And if you can do that in a productive way, where you're not fudding and yelling and shouting, but you're producing a solution, or you're producing a good, solid question, you're asking the right questions, then man, that could be a massive tool to breed a lot of fruit in the future for Veve.
Right? Yeah, I agree with that. And like you said, a lot of pros with those Twitter spaces, one being like the rawness of it, right? It's just very just true. I'd say, I think what leads to some of the FUD are some of just the cons, and what those spaces are, emotions get involved, right? Some emotions get a little high, and that's when you see some of the tensions, right? The negativity comes out, and then it turns into, people arguing their points and kind of just straying from the main goal that we have at the end of the day, which is to just try to bring as much education and insight as possible. And I'm all for disagreements, right? Because I don't want everyone in my corner just, giving me back rubs, applauding me, saying like, keep pushing forward. I might need a little smack across the face to, set my head straight and figure out, hey, Jack, you're got called a moon boy, right? On Twitter, my handle's Jackie Moon, and immediately it just turned into Moon Boy from a couple people. And you know what? They weren't wrong in a couple cases, but that I was okay with that. But again, it's just how some people deliver the message in some of those Twitter spaces. But yeah, I think those are some of the best areas to get involved with at the end of the day. And then kind of circling back to what you had said before, Chad, with both Ryan and I being in the marketing realm. So yeah, Ryan kills it. Hence, you can probably see some of his talent with our podcast, The Drop. I mean, kills it with the production, right? He's really good at that brand management, all the digital aspects of it, content creation, and so forth. And then on the flip side, my line of business is more so like the actual tangible goods, like, paper, promo, print, stuff along those lines. So, but I think we both agree and align on the fact that marketing is key, and we just haven't seen a ton of it yet, which I'm sure is partially planned and probably good, because I'm not sure if the app could withstand, a huge influx of users if the floodgates just opened all of a sudden, right? It would probably crash. I think we've seen that sometimes with the app being a little glitchy, but it is great to see, the tip of the iceberg with some of these aspects, such as AMC, right? With the marketing that they did around the release of their upcoming movie with Jurassic Park, and how you'll get that NFT, right, airdropped if you go to the 5-hour premiere, which we got tickets for. So definitely pumped about that. I'll be sitting right next to Ryan for that movie. But yeah, so it's great to see that hopefully some of those things are coming, and fingers crossed, I think we'd get, some great marketing and great exposure if Star Wars were to, tweet out something about the comic specifically, or Disney, with the big drop coming up here in the next 24 hours. But again, I think it's coming, but we're just, slowly progressing into it.
Wow, so well said. I love that you guys both have a marketing background as well, because you're probably like seeing all these opportunities for Veve that nobody else can really see. Because I'm just thinking now, after you saying this, like, imagine Disney, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, all these different major IPs just got together in a coordinated fashion and started advertising Veve for whatever reason, right? Or like, you said, promoting other things on their behalf, kind of piggybacking on different opportunities. So there's you know, like it goes to show me that like if they really wanted to make a huge stink, like in the NFT space, they could, you know, because these are multi-billion-dollar companies that we're partnered with. If they ever want to, you know, shift gears and get this stuff to more people, I mean, it wouldn't take, you know, a huge amount of effort, in my opinion. Maybe it costs a lot of money, but if they're already partnered with Veve, like, I don't know, like, am I making sense? I mean, I'm not a marketing expert, but yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest things about Veve, right? Like I was saying in spaces earlier today, even, you know, when you get in the NFT realm, you see like Bored Apes and you see like young kids and gamers, and not to discredit those people, right? Like they drive a lot of this space and they innovate in a lot of the ways in this space. But at the same time, these projects aren't Steamboat Willie. These projects aren't Walt Disney. These projects aren't some of the greatest and biggest IPs that we know so well and feel emotionally attached to. Like this is storytelling right here that is part of history and is really embedded into our souls and our hearts, right? And so that's why like I'm committed to Veve, because Veve, although they're an NFT project, they're also committed to the collective. They're committed to the story. They're committed to the IP. And that isn't something that you're going to find a lot of in some of these other projects.
Right. Well said, man. So I guess with that, how many comics are you buying tomorrow?
As many as I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
Luckily, I got access back to the market, so I'll actually be able to go for the drop,
You
which
can
is
go
great.
for it. Yeah, that's nice. It is interesting that it's 15 gems, right? So that's a little bit of an uptick compared to the norm. And then personally, and this is just my personal preference, I was hoping that there'd be a few less additions too, just to kind of bump up the rarity of it. But I love the artwork on it. Personally, the uncommon, big fan of that artwork, right? Just because as it relates to the Star Wars 4, A New Hope, you know, I thought that was a great, just, you know, kind of parallel and way that they adapted the artwork there.
Yeah, so I have some liquidity stacked up, right? I have a new strategy in Veve right now, just because like the market's volatile. My goal was to just hold everything early on, but then I started to learn like, you know, things are changing a little bit, and if you don't change with them, you will be left behind in a sense, right? And so what I did is I sold off some items, right? I love to hold items. I want to hold items, but I saw the way the market was moving, and for me, it made sense to liquidate some of that and wait a little bit until we get a lot of these new features that we've been waiting for, right? So we can get the new influx of people in this app, not just, you know, the 10 to 20,000 people, but like I'm talking a million more, you know, 5 million more people. But for me, I have a little bit of liquidity, so I will be looking at the secret rare. I know I'm not going to hit it on the drop, right? But I love like the artwork of that comic book too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks sweet. The black and white ones are epic.
Yeah.
So
big fan of those. My only complaint about the secret rare is that Vader isn't in the background somewhere. I really wish he was in the background, because you have everyone else, right? You got Chewie, you got Han, you got Luke. Just wish Vader was present, you know, even if he was kind of like in the stars as like a constellation or something, you know, but that's just me being, you know, picky. But.
So are you going to be mad if you don't hit the secret rare?
No,
or are you going to be mad if you do hit the secret
rare?
No,
that would be the first secret rare I ever hit. So I will be popping champagne. I have not hit a secret rare comic yet. So I would be thrilled with that. But again, that's just me nitpicking, because, you know, I guess just Star Wars, you immediately think of Vader, right, as one of the top 3 guys, in my opinion. But no, yeah, fingers crossed, hit at least one, right? But I would love to complete that set if possible.
Dude, well said. I'm going to try to complete the set as well. It's a really odd edition, number 2, for the total mints, like 45,000. And the thing that struck me was like when I was looking at it, I was like, okay, the common cover has 20,000 mints. And I was like, it's like super well known worldwide. And then like the secret rare is like something like 1,600 or 1,800 mints. And I was like, interesting, because Marvel Comics number 1 and, you know, majority of comics are 600. And so I felt as though they're almost trying to make all these different variants equally attractive in a sense, like where there would be more mints of some of the more common, more popular ones. But then at the same time, like even the Darth Vader is on, I think, the ultra rare, not the secret rare. So like it's just interesting. It's funny to see their strategy now, and it's like makes me wonder if long term we're not going to see, small mint sizes on really popular items anymore because they're trying to like ensure that more people get it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that.
I yeah, I hope that's not the case though, because I think one of the unique things about VV is that they do keep their edition sizes somewhat smaller, right? Like we just saw the back cows that came out with 200,000, I think that makes it not as desirable in a way. Like I love the fact that VV's created the secret rares and they have these specific rarities, and like secret rare Spider-Man, there's only 1,000 of those in the world. Like that makes it super desirable. It makes it super unique. And so I hope they stick to the lower edition sizes, but I can see too, why it would make sense to bump some of these things up and to bring new people into the app.
Interesting. I like you guys' perspective here. And here's one for you. Okay, so I've got a buddy, super smart. I'm gonna give him a shout out on Twitter. Akomi Homies. He's like,
he's a genius.
Yeah, you guys know him too, right? Yeah, I'm gonna make sure to clip this part for him because I was like, he's always talking about first to the blockchain, and he's not saying that that's the only factor, but he's just saying that that's a significant component. And he's like, when you look at this Star Wars comic, we've had R2D2 and C3PO, and now he's like, you're having all these characters in this comic hit the blockchain first. So he's like, in real life, maybe it's not as significant. Maybe it sells for under 10 grand as whatever 9.6. But he's like, on this in 20 years from now, people might look back and say, hey, there's, all these characters that hit the blockchain first in this data point. And so I guess my question is that as much as we can draw parallels to the physical realm, is it possible that this kind of takes on its own uniqueness and its own, I guess, like character that people wouldn't necessarily anticipate? Is that possible?
I would say 100%. I love the whole idea of first to the blockchain, first appearance in the blockchain. I think we'll even get to a point in history when we actually see the digital assets that are first in the blockchain achieve higher value than the actual real life physical form. So for instance, like for me, I think blockchain technology is going to be a massive infrastructure in just culture in general in 10, 20 years, because it solves practical problems, right? The history of something matters. And now with us moving more and more digital, to have the ability to actually see the history so quickly of a specific item matters a ton, right? And the blockchain solves that problem. And so I think the blockchain is going to be with us for a very long time. And yeah, we don't see the importance right now of that first appearance in the blockchain right now, just because we're still in this massive education phase, right? But when it becomes mainstream, when it is adopted by society as a tool to use, as a solution to a problem, then they're going to look back and they're going to try to find all those things. And man, that's when we really see like the true value come to light. And I think the Star Wars comic is the same exact thing.
Yeah. And to Ryan's point, right? I think part of the reason why we're not seeing that importance because so many things that are being released right now are the first appearances, right? Like we're that early that everything is a first right now for the most part. Obviously there's been, series 2 of the Mickey collection, right? With the band leader and, other ones and so forth. But so many of them are, first appearances. So we really, it's hard to compare it and look, in perspective and everything. And it's kind of funny because, again, circling back to one of Ryan's points where he said he had some liquidity, so do I. I sold off a handful of things within the last couple weeks or so. And it's funny because somebody on the Veve app called me a fraud. They said, Jackie Moon, you're a fraud. And I'm like, okay, you have no idea what like my plan is, right? You're looking through a keyhole at, what's going on, but no idea like, what my plan is behind the scenes, this and that. And it's just me restructuring my portfolio more or less. I mean, people do it all the time in the financial industry, right? Like if you're an investor, you're always restructuring your portfolio, right? Trying to get ahead of the curve or, play into whatever current trends are and so forth. So I thought that was kind of funny because, and I just wanted to bust that too, because one, I hope no one else really thinks I'm a fraud because I am here for the long term. I'm not cashing out or anything. I'm just repositioning myself with where my collectibles and comics stand.
And I would say too, you're not a fraud, but you are a moon boy, right?
Well, but yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like, how can you be a fraud and a moon boy? I'm so optimistic about everything, but yet I'm a fraud. So I don't know.
Talk about getting hit when you're already down.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm getting kicked left and right sometimes. But no, I do think, to your question, Chad, that it will take on a life of its own and kind of start carving out its new path. I guess it's interesting too, right, with the tags, because I don't think it won't have those FA tags as a comic, right? Even though that's technically the first appearance of those characters on the blockchain. So I still think, if we get a Han Solo or a Chewie or a Millennium Falcon vehicle dropped, or Yoda, Darth Vader, whatever it might be, like they'll still have those FA tags as the 3D collectible. So it'll be interesting to see how they stack up against one another. But again, I think at the end of the day, the true collectors and even the true investors will know that this was the first appearance of that character, whether it was in comic book form, collectible form, lenticular card form, or whatever other form ends up coming out, by Veve on the blockchain.
Wow, I love the way that you said that. It's interesting. It almost makes me think like it would say like first appearance in any medium on the blockchain, first appearance in comic book version, first appearance in statue version, whatever. But like this still will hold more significance than I think people are thinking. And the other big thing too is the target demographic. Like I remember one day looking at the demographic for Star Wars, and it was like something like 25 to 43-year-old white Caucasian male who's an IT or lawyer or something like that. And I'm not generalizing, because obviously there's great diversity within Veve, and that's critical. But I just thought that from what I can see, at least in terms of the analytics, there's a lot of people in North America, a lot of people that are in privileged situations that are into Star Wars. So it's just interesting to also note that is also crypto guys are likely also fantasy dudes and love sci-fi and shit like that too. So it could be a big one. Like I don't know where it's gonna go. All I know is that I've got some liquidity, and I'll be stocking. I'm not gonna say which ones. So we'll see what happens, man.
I wish I was here to stack like the Marvel Comics #1. Like the early days where people were just stacking the crap out of those things. But I kind of look at this drop as your opportunity to get in on that, because I don't think with this market sentiment, people are going to value it the way it should be valued. Just because, obviously it's a huge piece, but the sentiment still just isn't there. The energy still isn't there. And so I think people are going to undervalue it, and it's going to be your opportunity to get in at a lower price point to what it could be worth down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. I agree with that. And Ryan and I were chatting a little bit too, right? Like what makes it different than the Marvel comic one and so forth. And I think part of the aspect is, Ryan, you were saying this, the movie came first, right? With Star Wars and then the comics, rather than the comics establishing that storyline and, those characters and so forth. So, in that sense, people might not value the comic as much because the comic wasn't the OG, right? The movie was itself. But again, I don't know. There's a bunch of different, factors at play here. So it'll be interesting.
We were talking about that when you sent us, some of the questions you had, and we were talking through that. And I said, like, that does make sense, right? Like the Marvel comics established these characters. They told that story, and then they brought them to life in movie format. But Star Wars was a brand new beast, because this was like one of the first films where you had some really cool things happening in the theater, like in front of you, right? And that's what established the media with Star Wars. And so the comic book didn't necessarily establish the media. And so I think that's one of the reasons too why we don't see it selling at $100,000 or something like that. I guess the record was 6,000 or something like that.
Or recently, I guess listed, around that, like less than 10,000, right?
Yeah,
right. Wow. I mean, those are great points, and I think not a lot of people know that too. So a lot of people are thinking that this might have established the movies, or this, because that's generally how it works in other comic books with like superheroes and stuff. And just to touch on what you guys said about the Marvel Comics #1, I mean, that was like one of the biggest regrets of my life, because they were coming out $3-4. I remember I bought like 20 of them at the time just from the drop, and they were like $6.99, and then they went immediately for like $3 to $4 in the aftermarket. And the biggest confusion, I guess, for most people was that because it was listed at like $6.99 and it went to like 1.8K, unless you had like a comic background, you're like, oh, that's a massive ROI on such a small amount of money. And then on top of that, at the time, they didn't have the augmented reality aspect. So it just almost looked like a reprint. Like, you know, like that's what the way that a lot of people envisioned it. And I think, I forget exactly what I did, but I mean, I had the opportunity to buy like probably like 8 secret rares. You know, I would have had to sell some stuff off, but like, you know, and I just was like, I totally, you know, left it. And so that was the whole thing about buying into scarcity early on and then screwing it over popularity, right? So that, yeah, that was interesting, you know. I was still
I'm in the market. I mean, it's cool to hear that story though, because we're not aware of all that stuff that you guys went through in the really OG times. Like, you know, Marvel Comics #1 going on the secondary for $3. Like, how much of a picture does that help paint for the situation we're in now, where people are complaining, why are these going under retail? Why are these going under retail? Like, I mean, that was happening to Marvel Comics #1. That's crazy.
It's a cycle, right? And that's why I think we all wish we had that Doctor Strange time stone right now to just, you know, rewind the hands of time here. Maybe we could do it all over again, right? But no, it's funny. So the 2 reasons I was not involved with Veve at that point, and I wish I was. I just hadn't heard of it, wasn't on my radar. Ryan's the reason I got involved in Veve, and I wish he had told me sooner. So I guess I'll blame him. But then it's funny that Star Wars is dropping right now, because the other reason that really solidified me and kind of gave me that nudge to start buying some of these collectibles and comics was my oldest cousin being a huge, like when I say Star Wars geek, I know there's a huge spectrum, right? It's like, are you a Star Wars fan, or are you just a straight up savage Star Wars collector geek, you know? And he is on that far end of the spectrum. He bought a brand new, pretty nice house by selling recently all of his Star Wars collectibles on eBay. Like he's 38, and I mean, they're in that perfect mint condition in their cases, right, and everything. And I mean, yeah, he's selling them for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Yeah, I mean, his walls were just lined with them from floor to ceiling, and he sold them on eBay and bought himself in a house. But I was showing him around Thanksgiving of 2021. It's like, hey, have you seen these, R2D2 and C3PO collectibles? And he was like, no, I haven't. But he immediately downloaded the app and bought them. He's like, these are going to be worth something big in the future. And that's exactly when I downloaded the app, bought them right there on the spot too, because I was like, here's a guy that, you know, similar to other people in the space where, you know, they like My Collectibles ran a comic shop, you know, they have all this knowledge. And I'm like, wow, you know, my cousin here has sold these collectibles for a massive fortune, has, you know, studied the markets of them and everything. And so I'm like, I don't know, it just gave me the nudge and the little reassurance I needed, because I was a little hesitant on NFTs at that point. I'd put maybe 1 ETH into OpenSeas and didn't do my research, kind of just messing around, threw some money here, threw some money there, and I'm sure they're all worth very little right now. But the second Ryan sent me a screenshot of his Avengers logo and was like, look at this NFT, you know, digital format, everything, blah, 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 tied to Marvel. I was like, light bulb, you know, sign me up, and immediately just linked my bank account, and it was all over from there. So
nice. Yeah. And if you're like friggin', you know, that person's buying a house, dude, like with collectibles, obviously he knows what he's talking about. I mean, and if he's saying like NFTs, a new thing altogether, are going to be huge, then it's like, that's the confidence that you need. Like, you're like, okay, that's a house, and this is an NFT, and this maybe gets me a house one day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Bro, I'm listening to that guy.
Yeah.
I'm listening to that guy.
But
100%.
Yeah, just viewpoints. And I mean, he had no NFTs before that. But again, I think it's the same realm, right? It's the collectors. And then you're telling me that not only is this a collectible, but the fact that utility could be tied to it to even increase its value, you know, more so from that aspect. I was like, yeah, absolutely. It to me, it sounded like a no-brainer. We'll see what happens. But again, it's really interesting to see some of those perspectives.
The way I got into the app too, like, so you heard, like, I got him into the app and I showed him my Avengers logo. But the way I got into the app is I started getting into TikTok, right? I was afraid of TikTok because I see, like, I go to the mall and I'm in line at the chicken sandwich shop and I'm seeing these girls dancing in front of their phones. I'm like, that's TikTok right there. I'm telling you, they're TikToking. So I'm like, I'm not getting on that app. But then I started to see like just everyday people getting on there and talking to their phone and like building these audiences that, you know, they're just giving great information. Like the amount of information that you could learn on TikTok right now in 20 seconds, 30 seconds is out of this world. You can learn so much. And so I got on there, I tried to learn it. And I started following cryptocurrency people and NFT people just to learn more about the space, right? I just wanted to absorb as much knowledge as possible. And I hear this guy get on there, he goes, look at these NFTs. This company is releasing Disney's first NFTs on this app. And I go, all right. I exited out of TikTok. I went and downloaded Veve. And that was like, you know, the birth of a beautiful thing, because I saw this. I started looking at them in AR. I bought my first one. It was a Zombie Hunter Spider-Man for 99 bucks, right? And I was like, we were remodeling our home and I was dropping it in the middle of the floor, like not even painting. While everybody was painting, I'm playing with my NFTs. And I'm just like, dude, this is the future. This is the future. And ever since then, I've been 100% committed to the project.
Amazing, man. And I know that you guys, a big topic that you like to bring up in spaces is the future. And you were generous enough to have me on with Taps and, you know, all these other people to discuss like the veveverse. And, you know, we all had our own kind of understanding of what it could look like. And, you know, we didn't really ask you, I guess, like what you guys think of what this is going to look like. So, you know, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, because people have this huge vision for the veveverse and they imagine themselves like flying in a DeLorean and like, you know, jumping off with a parachute and landing on Bob's house and hanging out with Bob and, you know, and I'm like, hey guys, like that sounds amazing, but like what does it really mean? And it's like, seems like a buzzword. So I just wanted to pick your brains, because I feel like you guys know a lot about that.
Yeah. You know, obviously we don't know what it's going to look like, but we can speculate about it. Right. And I think, for me, like we're still very far off from the idea of the metaverse, right? I think what comes before that is the augmented reality capabilities on our phones and virtual reality with the headsets and whatnot. But for somebody to really build a Ready Player One style metaverse, like that's a very long way off. And I think when we're talking Veve, we need to be more realistic, right? Like I hear people talk about like Veve's going to start coming out with games and they're going to be, you know, and I don't want Veve to be a game company. Like that's not what they are, right? If I want to play a game, I'm going to go play Call of Duty, or I'm going to get on Fortnite, or, you know, I'm not going to go to Veve. I want Veve to stay true to the collector, stay true to the mission, stay true to the vision, right? But make that experience as great as they possibly can make it. And so for me, I look at the veveverse as this, and I brought this up on our podcast the other day, was, you know, my collectibles, right? He had a comic book store in real life, in a toy store. And how cool would it be for Veve to actually be the manufacturer of products now that he's now reselling in the veveverse to people like you and me, right? So in his vault, he has, you know, 200 Marvel Comics #1s. He has, you know, a bunch of different comics. And then in this section, he has a bunch of different, you know, the Steamboat Willie set. He has the Spider-Man set, right? And you can actually go to his store in the veveverse or his vault and talk to him about these different things and why they're valuable. And then you could purchase from him right on the spot. Like that's what I kind of envision the veveverse being, like a community engagement factor where we're actually picking each other's brains in virtual reality about these different assets and why they're valuable, and then trading them amongst each other.
Yep. And so yeah, like Ryan was saying, I think the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is Ready Player One, right? Like great movie, but again, that is so far off in my opinion. You know, someone else, and I'm surprised this wasn't brought up sooner. One, because it's a great movie, but Wreck-It Ralph #2, right? That's kind of like this, I don't know, veveverse thing where they're at the train station, I think it is, and then like each train takes you to like a different portal, different almost like realm. And I could kind of see some similarities there, right? Where like Veve is one of those realms, and maybe you can take your skin or your character off app or off world into a different dimension for that gaming, right? But I don't think Veve is the one that's going to specialize in the gaming itself, similar to what you had said in. I don't know, like what's another movie? Good Guy. I don't know if anyone has seen Good Guy with Ryan Reynolds. Great movie. But again, that kind of reminds me of, Ready Player One and just being so far off. So when I think veveverse, I kind of think it's the old computer game Sims, right? Where you can kind of like live in a little community. I don't know, you're kind of like walking out your door and some like virtual character. I walk into Chad's house here, I see his collectibles. We sit on the couch, maybe we're just chatting about, Veve and, our strategies and so forth. But yeah, something more so in that niche and that kind of like area, that sector where, yeah, again, you're not flying around in jets in the sky, right? And I'm not, in my TIE fighter up in the sky battling someone in their, X-Wing or whatever, trying to destroy the Death Star, and then parachuting down into safety and landing, in some giant ball pit or something, I don't know. Yeah, I see it more as, we have to start, something somewhere a little bit more elementary and basic and kind of just tailor our expectations, because again, at the very core of it, it was built as a collector's app. And I think it's great that they are taking our input and tailoring it, and it's a fluid moving project. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I stand with it.
Yeah. Well, what I love about that is you both gave really kind of practical insights. Like I can kind of envision what you're saying, and it's just like, that's the kind of thing that will likely happen. It's not this like Megatron of information and all these different things kind of, coming together. So, and it could get there, but I just think that's more like a 20-year roadmap, like 15 to maybe less than that, but you know what I mean? So I guess on a more, I guess general note, what does 3 years from now look like on you? Like, what is, is there going to be another catalyst that gets us back into those all-time highs that we had in January? Like, where do we think there's going to be more mainstream adoption from people worldwide? Like, what is like 2025 Christmas look like? I guess.
Yeah, I have tons of ideas. I have tons of ideas about this, but I'm going to try to narrow them down, right? So.
And this is probably why Ryan is in spaces until like 4 a.m., right? Because his mind is just running wild. But it's hard not to go down the rabbit hole because it's so exciting and right, we're so optimistic about it. And it's the unknown, in my opinion, right? Like it used to be space is the last frontier. Now, in my opinion, right, this digital realm is the last frontier because hasn't been explored at all. It hasn't been built up at all. And I think there are a lot of catalysts. I'll let Ryan jump back in. I didn't cut you off. But.
No, I agree 100% with that. I think obviously there's a lot that Veve still needs to achieve, right? Yeah. I think that when I look at Web3, I look at the interoperability. I look at the ability to, purchase with cryptocurrency. I look at the ability to have easier access to the blockchain technology, right? To the blockchain information. So, over the next 1 to 2 years, I really see Veve taking that next step into Web3 and starting to making this app. Obviously, after this web app is completed, after the KYC, the MTL comes, it's really then let's take this next step into OMI to NFT, making the blockchain information available in the app, right? Focusing on interoperability with some of these different platforms and different partners and whatnot, and really connecting it and making it full circle. Like that is what's going to be the genuine reason why the collectibles are valuable. When we had that pump in January, it was so artificial because people were manipulating the system of the gems. People were buying gems off app. They were coming into the app and they were eating up floors because they were buying these products at way cheaper cost than they actually were, right? And then they were reselling them and getting the actual value of the gem, the full gem, right? Which was completely manipulating the whole entire market. So, was Steamboat Willie Ultra Rare really worth $10,000? I don't think. Will it be worth $10,000? Way more than $10,000 in my opinion one day. But it needs to be a genuine 10,000. It needs to be a genuine 20,000. And until some of those things happen, I don't think we're gonna get that mainstream adoption, because at the end of the day, people need, if they're putting their money in, they need to get their money out. if we want to be Web3, if we want to be future blockchain technology, we have to have some of these things in the app. So I think over the 3-year period, I'd give it 3 years. That's where I see Veve. I don't see us like, there's a lot of things thrown around. That could come earlier, I don't know. But I just think at the pace we're going, it's going to be around 3 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, right? And everyone's always saying when, soon is the response we get in some occasions. But it's like it's never been done before. Like, we don't have a definitive roadmap because we don't know this path yet, right? No one's ever done it before. So we're, building it brick by brick until we see, where it leads us. And we have our goals set very high, and in some cases, probably unrealistically high, right? At least for the very present. Again, yeah, 3 years, 5 years from now, yeah, maybe that is, tangible and within reach. But, for stuff to get done in, 2 weeks, a month, it's just not practical. But yeah, I think once we get some of this mass marketing, and some of it will just be free marketing, right? Again, similar to what we saw with AMC. I know we already touched on that earlier, but what happens if like Louis Vuitton or Gucci comes on here and they're, they want to start marketing some of their apparel or, sunglasses or something, and, you get some free airdrop if you, buy this or that, or, Nike with certain shoes, and, Jordan, and all of a sudden you start seeing it at sporting arenas. I don't know. I do see the possibilities as just being absolutely endless, but again, patience is key, and we're just building this path brick by brick. So it's going to take time.
Can I speak on that for a minute? Am I able to speak on what he said?
Oh, no, bro, that's it. Time's up. No, 100%. So you guys are here.
Dude, so this was when the AMC announcement came out about Jurassic Park and Veve partnering, right? I actually started to see Veve is actually going to be a very valuable asset, not just from a licensing perspective and a software perspective, but from a marketing perspective. Think of for AMC, right? I am going to go see Jurassic Park at AMC theaters that's 40 minutes from my home, instead of going to Cinemark that's right across the street.
We could walk there from here, literally 3 minutes down the road, but instead we're driving downtown Pittsburgh 40 minutes away to go see this because of the NFT. And gas prices are pretty high right now, so that is a sacrifice.
Yeah, not just on the Ethereum blockchain, right? Yeah. But yeah, so I look at that and I say to myself, dude, AMC is going to see an uptick in sales for refreshments and all the ways in which they make money based around partnering with Veve. And so down the road, I see actually companies wanting to partner with Veve as a way to market their products. We already saw it with Coca-Cola, right? With the Starlight drop, which I thought was really interesting and cool. And I'm not saying that I love that idea, but I think it's a practical thing that's going to happen, and it's going to generate revenue for Veve, right? And that revenue is going to get poured back into people to develop the app further. It's going to get poured back into features, and it's going to get poured back into utility. And that's all going to make our experience way better. So I'm all for these different things happening.
Wow. Man, this is why I love your guys' podcast, because like, dude, this is the type of stuff that I want to hear. And I feel like the way that you guys gift wrapped that whole conversation, like, because I think a lot of people think in 3 years, veveverse flying their jet plane, right? And it's like, I think what you said there was perfect. It was like, what happens in 3 years? It's like we actually, get past these hurdles. We get them working. Omni 10 FT is a thing. People start to know more about it, and it's like a really polished working system. And at that point, there's more mainstream adoption, and then the real fun starts happening. You know what I mean? So I think that's really well said. And one thing that you also touched on was like the utility, right? We haven't seen much utility. And I know I saw you guys minted a cow. I personally minted a cow as well. And bro, like, as much as, okay, maybe it's not the first ever taught and these things, I was like looking at that roadmap and I was like, man, 24 months, every 52 days. I was like, this will be your passport to limited drops, potentially some unique NFTs coming. And then I was like, Veve, man, like, where's the utility? Like that to me is going to be that huge catalyst. And you guys both talked about this, but like, I think actually I'm actually going to cherry pick what you said today, Ryan, on Spaces, which was like, if I collected like 100 comics and I was like airdropped a secret rare comic, then that would like incentivize me to want to collect more comics and be more intentional and focused. And I think there's so much complexity because there's so many users that it would be like hard for them to understand how to like, I guess like create that pathway. But what do you guys think about that? Like what utility could Veve add that would really kind of take it over the edge?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I touched on in our recent podcast, so we'll piggyback off of that a little bit. But like they announced what the 2099 Spider-Man movie for 2023, I think it is, or 2024. It's something with the 2099 Spider-Man. So like in my opinion, if you collect like that entire Mighty Marvel set, what happens, right? Veveverse is up and running by this point, right? This is 2 years in the future, year and a half or whatever, maybe even just like, the very, I don't know, skeleton aspect of Veveverse is up and running. I can go into that Veveverse, and because I have the full set of that Mighty Marvel set with Spider-Man 2099, I can see the premiere, like a day early premiere of the movie or something, right? I don't know. Like that was just one thing we had thrown around, but I think the possibilities are endless with the utility.
I think that's a great utility. Like actually,
it seems basic in my mind. It seems basic, right? It's like, okay, it's probably pretty easy to upload like an early premiere of the movie. And because you have every character from that set, you unlock the access, right? That key to be able to go in there and view it somehow.
I watched your conversation with Trevor.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really cool what he was talking about because he's really in tune with the way games are designed. And he doesn't just look at it from the perspective of playing it. He looks at it from the perspective of achieving within it, right? And like sometimes the utility of playing a game is just being able to achieve things within the game. Like that is the reward, right? And so I think where Veve's failing is they're making it a marketplace for flippers more than they're making it a collector's app to achieve things, right? And so by giving us the incentive to become a collector, they can actually, like they already made me a collector. I wasn't a collector before Veve. I love Marvel, I love Batman, I loved all those characters. I would always go to see the movie when they came out, right? But I wasn't a collector. Now I'm going into comic book stores. I'm going to the collector section in Target when my wife is off, looking at decor for a house or something, like they're turning me into a collector. And so I want to see them implement features into the app to further that process of creating collectors, because if they can do that, now they're staying true to that vision, and they're going to get tons of people to back that up and commit to that. So that idea of, collect 100 comics and we'll airdrop you a comic, or we'll airdrop you a movie ticket to, doing things like that is going to bring out the best in the collectors. And I think it's a no-brainer to implement it in the app.
Right. Wow. Man, and I think you're totally right. And I think like, man, I'm just thinking about that. Like even for myself, I think that would drive so much more engagement. It would make things exciting again. It would keep me focused month to month, not just, year to year. Like every day I'd be looking for something new. And I guess like, another big thing about that is like, these special drops, right? Like I remember back in the day, they used to, I don't know if you guys remember this, but they had like secret rare drops that would happen without anybody knowing, like Lucky, as an example.
Yeah, the serial killer. Right?
Yeah, it was just like 4 p.m. And then like I remember I was like driving and it was like, shoot, like there's my brother calls me, he's like, drop in 7 minutes. Like they announced it on Toy Tokyo or something. And like, these are the kind of things that like happened a lot more. And it just feels more like just like a rotating, door now. It's just kind of like, okay, we got another drop, but it's like, what else do we got? Right.
And look at it this way too, like, so many people looked at Veve and stole things from them, right? Like I look at Hero, for example. It's a good example because they're still in the realm of like comics and, sorry. They're still, I use my hands too much. I apologize. Like I talk a lot with my hands, but I want to see Veve now steal some stuff from them. So for instance, their leaderboard system, right? You actually get points and it ranks you in a leaderboard, but you get more points for collecting lower mints, right? How practical is that to implement in the Veve system, where if you have a sub 1,000 mint, you get more points than if you have a sub 10,000 mint, right? And then you're actually trying to rank up in the leaderboard. And now this gives you that clout of being like, you know, a master collector. I think we need these types of things in the app so it incentivizes people to be more engaged rather than just going for a drop. Oh, I flipped it for $200. Like, that's great, but that's not what's going to keep people here.
Right. Right. And on top of that, we always had like, you know, the master collector program. And it was like, that was supposed to, well, at least they talked about it way back, right? It was exciting because we all thought, hey, like they were on their second iteration and we thought maybe it was just a few weeks or even months ahead. And then now we're still here. And, you know, some of the OGs and some of the whales I talked to are like, man, what's going to be left when the MCPs already comes out? I mean, obviously there's still a shitload of IP to be dropped, but he's like talking about like Grail stuff, like Darth Vader, Mickey Mouse, you know, Superman, Batman, like some of the best comics of all time. I mean, obviously we're missing Amazing Fantasy 15 and a bunch of others, but he's like, you know, I just hope that when the MCP comes out, like those points are going to go getting to, you know, giving me more lotto tickets to actually have a higher chance of getting like another Grail, right? Because and that's the other thing. I'm like wondering what the delay is there, and I just don't know. Sometimes it just seems like there's something waiting. Like I don't know if there's going to be a big bang one day and we're just going to get hit, but so far it's kind of like, when's the timeline, you know?
Yeah, just kind of twiddling our thumbs a little bit, right? But and like you said, even though there's a shit ton of IPs left to be released, in my opinion, every season that goes on, right, it kind of just chisels away a little bit at it. I don't want to say at its value, but season one, again, in my opinion, right, it just, you know, that's the foundation, that's the absolute core, and in my opinion gives it that much more importance. So again, you know, Darth Vader comes along maybe season 4 or you know, whenever it falls, again, obviously a massive IP, people are going to go nuts, right? Going to see a huge gem squeeze, I'm sure, but I still think, you know, season 1 just kind of has that extra little edge up in some arguments at least.
Well, and you think about it too, like when we're on season 100 or season 200, you know, like they have a long-term vision for this. And that is going to make that, you know, series 1 Batman set that much more valuable. But we just can't see that now because we're in it every day. Like it's just not there yet. It's not that it's not going to come. It's just, when is that going to happen, right? Yeah. And I know I'm not supposed to say when, but
and newsflash, just I'll throw this in here a little bit too for those that did call me a fraud. The season 1 Batman is what I have my targets on. That little Todd guy behind over your right shoulder there, Chad. So I don't have one. Really looking to add one to my collection and just kind of working my way. So again, it really just broke my heart being called a fraud because I'm not.
You know, and
that's okay. That's all right.
Shout out to Crypto Cam because he said, I can't be a legitimate VV content creator until I own a Todd. So that's what my eyes are set on, to put my money where my mouth is, right? So we'll see.
Yeah, you got your back cow. Now you need your Todd. They're just getting decked out in Batman gear.
To talk about the back hills for 20 seconds, what if the utility they bring is to give you access to the first Batman comics? Like that would be huge. That $300 pays for itself in gold.
100%. That was the number one reason why I got it. I was like, you know, and I think Foster said it perfectly, is like, you know, what's the downside potential? He's like, you buy for 300, it goes down to 220. Worst case, you know, people don't want it, which I think is extremely low after seeing these things. I'm like, I don't know how they're going to go down under 300, but the upside is insane considering if they do have DC Comics, right? Because they have, you know, some of the highest grosser, the highest priced comics of all time, right? I mean, if you look at like, you know, Action Comics #1 with Superman, I mean, that's minimum $3.5 million comic for like a 9.0 or something, right? So it's insane, right? So yeah, those back cows, man. I mean, and this is the thing too, like all ships will rise. Like everybody's got this competitive attitude right now, and I'm like, dude, like the more. Yeah, and we talked about this actually on the Twitter Spaces. Like the more of us that are helping each other out and growing these spaces, you're bringing in different collectors, different fans, different people, and it's just growing the whole ecosystem. So
yeah, and we even had like an unofficial nod to Todd, right, from the Backhow family, right, that he was. I mean, it was unofficial, but he's like the first Batman in the blockchain, and I thought that was cool. Like that gave me more of an incentive to buy, because I looked at it as, okay, this is a family, right? Like, we're a family. At the end of the day, I love the fact that there's so many companies giving more credibility to the reasons why this space needs to exist. Clearly, we're seeing the reasons why this space needs to exist. And as long as these companies are delivering a great product and we can pull from each other the good things and leave behind the bad things, right? Like you said, we're all going to rise when the tide comes up. So I'm excited to see all this stuff happen. Am I going to agree with it all? Am I going to jump on the train with it all? No. But I definitely want to see people succeed, and because it gives credibility to the space.
Yeah, I really wish I had I guess I kind of had the opportunity to get a back cow. So I'm just going to be, living vicariously through Ryan. But again, just in the, with the move going on here and everything, it was like, all right, the back cow or just some, stuff at the new house. And the wife has my credit card on lock right now for that reason. But I did buy this $40 back cow on Amazon. So that's,
there we go.
I'll enjoy, I'll live in the present and enjoy the moment right
What do
now.
we got?
So
We got Black Panther. We got a 142 of 1,000 mint on this guy.
Yeah.
Wolverine.
Would love to see a Wolverine drop. I would be so stoked about that.
Yeah.
Man, and you know what's funny, guys, and I just want to share this with you because everybody says, they're jealous and like, dude, if I were you, I would have bought 100 Todds. And I was like, man, like, some people did, right? Like Silicon, maybe 3 other guys, right? Went all out when Veve was early. But what is hilarious is that 99% of the people that you talk to in the general NFT space made fun of Veve at that point. So we were really battling against a way bigger opponent then because we had such few users and nobody was like, they're not even minted, We're like, no, it's GoChain. They're like, GoChain's not even a thing. And so, they were just making fun of it. And it's like, if I think about it, man, I was literally going to bed at night with 6,500 Todds left in the store. And, if you think about it, you spend 10 grand, you're a millionaire, right? And I spent I think I bought 18 at the time. But looking back, this is how moves can be made. And so here we are a year later going through another FUD cycle, people aren't convicted again. And it's not even as bad as the first one. Before we had all roadblocks against us. Now it's like, yeah, you're fucking secured on IMX. It's a legit NFT. You can track it on the blockchain. Yeah, you're right. We don't have MTL. Yeah, you're right. We don't have all these other things, but it's it's coming. And it's we're 1,000 steps further ahead than we were then. And look at the prices we saw. So, what is 3 years going to do from this point on? Right. And it's if only I was more convicted then, I wouldn't even be having this conversation because I'd be in fucking Bora Bora right now, sipping margarita.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
and going back to Immutable X, right? Seeing GameStop on there, right? That's just incredible in my opinion. What you saw with the Reddit team, right? The what was that subreddit?
Oh, the Robinhood app?
Yeah, but on Reddit, Wall Street Bets rallying behind that Reddit crew. I'm sorry, rallying behind GameStop, right? You get one of these momentum, swifts here just really driving change and driving user growth and everything. And they saved GameStop from bankruptcy. They saved AMC from bankruptcy, right? Again, these communities and these groups out there, once they latch onto something, it's, you're off to the races, and there's no looking back. And that's why I really think right now I'm of the opinion that floors will continue to drop a little bit. I'm not bearish, but I just think, right, that growth that we had in January was not organic. It wasn't real, and we're going to continue following here a little bit until we get OMI to NFT and MTL and everything. And even with MTL, I think we'll see a minor setback before that major comeback. But the way I see it is this spring coil is just continuously getting loaded up, right? Those floors are getting thinner and thinner. There's less, collectibles listed. And whenever that thing pops, it's, sending us into orbit, hence the Moon Boy name, I guess. But that's just my opinion.
No, I agree with you, because if you look at some of these floors, they're paper thin floors. Literally 2 come off the market and you just had a $5,000 pop in price. It's crazy, right? And for me, I sold some stuff off to gain liquidity, and I'm just sitting on it right now because I agree with Jack. Like, I think the floors are going to dip a little bit. And this is more so from an investment perspective than it is a collector's perspective, right? Like, as a collector, collect what you love. You know, what do you want to see in your vault? What do you want to enjoy? Collect it, buy it, regardless of the price, right? But as an investor, as somebody who also wants to see a profit, right? I think we're going to see some of these floors drop even 10, 20% more. And for me, it makes sense to maybe sell off some things, gain the gems. And then if I can essentially buy back after it dropped $200 and just gain a free $200 worth of liquidity for maybe something else that I was looking at, that could be a really practical way to put yourself in a better position in the Veve app moving forward. So I think, shifting your strategy, adapting to the market changes, not stressing yourself out though, like, you're still going to be able to maintain your life, right? But adaptation in this type of market is so important and it's pivotal. And I think that's going to be the game changer for the people that really benefit from this.
Because I see these gems as just being kind of diluted across, right, these new collectibles, these new grails, whether you want to consider this new Star Wars comic a grail or just even a tier 1 comic, right? It's up there. It's the very first ever Star Wars comic in digital format and, the first version in the real world too. So, there's a lot of value attached to that. We have Obi-Wan, the Disney Plus series, coming out at the end of May here. I would be shocked if we don't have another Star Wars collectible drop before that, right? And I just see that as a gem squeeze because people are selling off what they currently have and then reinvesting it into the new shiny toy, right? So again, that it just gets further diluted across the table as you have more hands on everything. And that's why I personally see them just not free falling, but slowly, steadily kind of just falling back down a little bit. But again, I view it as a spring coil because I am still extremely optimistic and bullish on this, that whenever that spring pops, we are just going to rocket through some of these floors. And, again, you would think people would have learned the first time. I wasn't here the first time, but, seeing stuff selling below retail, like you were saying with the Todds and so forth. But again, everything just comes in cycles and some people don't want to learn from their mistakes, but, they'll be caught red-handed this time. So
yeah, I love that, man. And I guess just to give you another perspective on your spring call, I love the way that sounds, because it's like continuously getting down and it looks like kind of bearish, and then all of a sudden one day it just pops. But I was also thinking of like this is like one of my buddies explained it to me like a jar. He's like, imagine you have like a high concentration of people or whatever, let's say material in a small jar. And the small jar is representative of like NFTs. And then now, that jar is a lot bigger, but there's not more material. So now that material is getting spread over a wider space. And then he's like, eventually, I'm not sure which way it's going to go. If there's going to be, so much more material coming in that the jar, will get filled up again, or if it's just going to keep expanding with NFTs. And it's like, this is the game that I'm trying to understand. Like, I don't understand enough whether or not we're going to have enough people to be able to sustain all these NFTs that one day could be like in the billions of editions, and so like that's where I always talk about grails and like looking for those special ones. But I don't know, like we used to think the same thing when Veve had 7,500 Todds. Like I remember people saying like, you're a fucking idiot. Like this one guy's literally looked at me, he's like, you're a fucking idiot if you ever think 7,500 is going to get sold out. Like, and this was back before, this was like March, right? So you didn't even think that was going to sell out in stores. So now not only did it sell out, it had more than a $75 million market cap. I think its peak was like, 14K. And we can say the same about, Partner Statue, $214 million market cap, etc. So, it's hard to predict, right? But I think what's amazing about Veve is that everything is on Veve. Like if we didn't have that and it was just like one project like DC or whatever, but it's like the whole world's here and they happen to hit first in so many of the projects. Like I almost see Veve as like the professional OpenSea in a sense.
Yeah. I said in Spaces today, obviously I was frustrated because I got banned from the market, but I threw something out there. I said Disney or Veve will be the Disney of NFTs. Like I think they will clean up some of these different things, right? They'll figure that out as time goes on. They'll learn about it. They'll come up with a solution. It won't be in the time that we want it to be, but it will happen. And when it does, all of this bearish FUD, whatever you want to call it, like it's going to be forgotten about, and we're going to be, down the highway running. And for me, like, I also want to say too, as this market evolves and there's more and more things coming out and the market gets saturated, it does become a lot more important. And this is also from an investment perspective, right? If you're a collector, collect what you love.
Right.
But it also becomes extremely important to pick out the things that you think are going to do well because they're popular in the real world and there's a market for them. Like some of this stuff on this app is not going to be going to the moon. Like it's actually going to go back to retail, maybe even below, and stay there, right? People are going to come into the app and they're going to enter into those items. The things that aren't going to stay where they even are now, right? Like Elsa, could we see her at $5,000, $10,000, right? And then she's never going to go back below $5,000. I think that day will come, and you really, like, if you can look at the market now as the opportunity to get in before all of that happens, then you actually look at this market as a really big opportunity and you're not so bearish about it.
Right. Well said. I love that. Right, guys. Well, listen, man, you guys are fucking great. I love your podcast. I love chatting with you. Please go follow these guys. Like they've got so much to say. They're really into it. And it's so cool, like just seeing how this space is developing, because I'm like, there's just so much more foundation now. Like before we had like some pillars, and now like the whole thing's concrete. We got a strong foundation underneath Veve. And you guys are certainly, one of the main pillars for me. So please go follow these guys. And where could everybody find you? Maybe you can like kind of share your Twitter and, your YouTube and everything else like that, TikTok.
Yeah. So we obviously do the Drop podcast, and that's on Apple, it's on Spotify. And then we also record it with a camera to put it on YouTube. Right. So it's just the Drop Veve. On the podcast apps like Apple and Spotify, it's the Drop podcast. It's crazy because if you go on there, there's not a lot of content around podcast stuff, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity to draw some more people into Veve through that realm, right? That medium. And then we have Twitter, which is the Drop Veve, and then mine's Realist Merc, and his is Jackie Moon. We always do like spaces and stuff, so I'm sure people will come in and enjoy it. But yeah, that's where you can find us now. We actually are in the works of, adding some utility of our own. We're trying to be creative to really bring some utility of our own to the community in which we've been privileged enough to enjoy. And as an ode to those people we've made connections with and met, we want to start to give back in some ways. So we're working on a project right now. I won't share it yet, but I will share it soon. And yeah, it'll be fun, man. For me, this has been one of the best experiences of my life. Like I work in digital marketing, so I build digital communities for companies on the back end, right? Like that's just what I do. And I don't talk about it a lot just because I don't know, it's different. But when I came to this community, it was unlike any other community I've ever experienced. The people are genuine, they're transparent, they're realistic. A lot of them, regardless of the FUD, are kind. They care about people. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy being a part of this. And I think we underestimate the utility of that, is the community that we have in this. I think that's going to be the thing that lives long into the future as opposed to some of these other projects. So I just want to say thank you to you, man, for your content and your passion and what you're doing. You're like the guy, right? Me and Jack were sending your YouTube videos back. Like in the morning, I'd wake up to a text from Jack saying, "Did you see this video?" And I would watch it, and then I would get all this info. I'd be like, "Man, this guy's this guy's giving me the goods right now. This is great. Like I'm getting more and more bullish. So I appreciate you, brother. And yeah, you're a beast.
Yeah, appreciate it, Chad. Thanks for having us on. Like Ryan said, find us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, with our podcast. Really appreciate your time and consideration here. Like I said, we got some cool things in the works out there on the horizon. So we will definitely shed some more light on those whenever the time comes. We'll get you some cool merch too. So, as we touched on before, Ryan in the digital realm, me in the actual like real life, like promo realm. So we got some cool merch that we're putting together here just from our backgrounds and our connections and everything. But yeah, again, hats off to you for kind of paving the way here and really inspiring us in a lot of ways. Usually when I'm at the gym working out, it's me jamming out to DMX or something. But now, I throw on NFT Pirates and I'm just as motivated because I'm just, pumped and ready to run through a wall or something. So
place your Becky right there. All right, let's get this pumping.
Yeah. But no, hats off to you. So appreciate it.
Man, thanks, Chance. That's so funny that you say that because I'm always on Twitter Spaces as well, doing the same thing. Like I was at the gym today on the treadmill, and like I was like thinking to myself, like if this girl ever asked me what I'm listening to, I'd be like, you don't want to know. It's something. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, man, like you guys are, like I said, once I saw your channel, I was like, okay, you guys blew me away right away, and you're so knowledgeable. And as much as you give me, credit, there's a lot of ideas in there and things that you've said, even in this interview, that I've never even thought of myself. So, and that's the beauty, right, of having like, another big player in the space. So yeah, so go follow these guys, make sure to subscribe and join Twitter Spaces. This is where you get rapid info. This is where you're going to be able to make sharp moves without like, being 12 hours too late on YouTube. Because once you see it on this video, you're already late. Like things already happened the night before. So, make sure to get a Twitter account if you don't have one. And yeah, huge kudos to you guys for coming on today. And yeah, looking forward to your next video, guys. Thanks, man.
Sweet. Appreciate it, man. Take care.
Just take care now.